So welcome back, everybody. I know that a lot of y'all right now are suffering through some snow and some ice and some pretty cold stuff, but right now it is almost 60 degrees here in Georgia, and we're going to go ahead and plant the first crop of potatoes in the garden. And we're going to go through step by step, and I'll just show you how I do it. So as you can see, our plot here has been lightly tilled. What we need to do now is we need to put some fertilizer in it. This is just some standard 1010 fertilizer. It's Rainbow brand, and this is really not a plug for Rainbow fertilizer. It's just what I happen to have, but go ahead and pay a few extra dollars for decent quality fertilizer. You can get cheap fertilizer, but it may not all melt into the soil, so you won't get as much bang for your buck as far as nutrients go. Try to find yourself a decent plastic container. We're going to use this right here to spread it with. It's just something to get your hands off of the fertilizer, because you really don't need to be handling this stuff in bare hands. If you do decide to use a metal container, just be aware you're only going to get 2 or 3 years out of it, because fertilizer is highly corrosive. And along that same vein, if you use your good pocket knife to open these bags of fertilizer, either rinse that pocket knife off real good afterwards, or just don't do it, because I had a good sod buster case knife one time that I totally ruined by opening fertilizer with. As far as how much fertilizer to put, just kind of put a good even coat. You can see those little white dots down there. That's the fertilizer plus that little pile. But just kind of get a good even coat. You can always come back and refertilize them later once they're planted, but don't put too much on it. All we want is a little bit of extra nutrients in the soil for these things. So now that we've got it fertilized, we want to take our tiller and do a good deep till in the soil. This soil has already been tilled a couple of times, but it's just kind of a surface till. What we want to do is get it as deep as we can, because these potatoes are obviously a root crop, and we need to make sure the ground is soft as deep as we can, so those roots and those roots can grow out and make good potatoes for us. Now, if you don't have a tiller, don't worry about it. If you've got a hoe and some motivation, you can bust up the soil just as well with a good hoe. Just metal stakes. I like to use these stakes. They're pretty inexpensive and they're really sturdy. I get them at Tractor Supply. I think they're less than $2, but I like to use them to stake off my rows. In the case of potatoes, they are about 3 feet long, so they do really well to help you measure between rows. Now we just want to go down that row and pull the dirt out and kind of make a little trench. You're going to end up with mounds, essentially. What we're going to do, we're going to trench this out right here. We're going to put a potato down in there. Once that potato busts out of the top of the ground, we'll cover it up again. And once those shoots come out of the ground, we'll cover it up one more time. So you're going to end up with about 5 inches of potatoes on top of a mound. Sorry, 5 inches of dirt on top of a mound. So after I ditch the dirt off to one side or pull the dirt off to one side, I like to go around to the other side of the row and pull dirt in the opposite direction. That way I've got 2 different mounds of dirt to use once I start pulling dirt back on top of the potatoes as those potatoes grow. And if your rows end up crooked, that ain't no big deal. My dad always says you can get a whole lot more plants in crooked rows than straight rows. So we usually plant two varieties of potatoes here, red potatoes and Yukon Golds. These are the reds. And something else, if y'all have access to a feed and seed store somewhere in your area, I would strongly suggest that you use that, because you're going to get a much better value for your buck as far as how much you're going to get. Because at my local feed and seed store, these potatoes are 49 cents a pound for the reds and 69 cents a pound for the Yukon Golds. If you go to Tractor Supply or somewhere like that, you're going to end up paying like $6 for a little bag that's about that big of seed potatoes, and that's just not that great of a value. So let's see what we've got here. So these are your standard seed potatoes. I purchased these maybe a week or so ago, and you can see the little eyes that have started on these. When I first got them, they were more like that, very small, but they've since started to sprout and grow, and that's totally fine. So what you're going to do is you're going to take these potatoes and you're going to cut them into quarters, or you can even cut them smaller if you want to. All you need is just really just one of these little sprouts on each side. So what you can do is you can take your pocket knife or whatever knife you care to use, cut them into quarters. And there's really no science to this, you just have to make sure that you have an eye or two on each piece. So on this one we've got several eyes, so you know you're good. Each one of those eyes is essentially going to make a potato plant. And now you're ready to start setting these out. What you'll do is you'll take your, I'm not even sure what these are called, quarters, seed potatoes, sections, we'll call them sections. You'll take your section and you'll just stick it here close to the end of the row. These plants are supposed to be 12 inches apart. I mean, they don't have to be exactly 12 inches, but that's a good rule of thumb. So my foot's about 12 inches, so what I like to do is just kind of take my shoe and space it just like that. And that'll get the job done, and you just keep going down the road just like that. Once you get your sections placed, what you want to do is take your hoe and pull maybe a couple of inches of dirt on top of this row. What you want to end up with eventually is essentially going to be a mound. It's going to be called your potato mound. Now once the shoots from these potatoes start coming up through this layer of dirt, what you'll do is you'll come and you'll mound this mound over on top of those shoots and cover those shoots up maybe a couple of inches. And once the shoots come up from that pile of dirt, you'll do the same thing. So you'll end up with 5 or 6 inches of dirt total on top of your potato. And after you put that third layer of dirt on top of your potatoes, you're done. Then you can let those shoots come on out the top of the ground and they'll leaf out, and then you'll wait and wait and wait until your potatoes are ready. So guys, that completes the first step in our potato planting process. Like I said earlier, once your sprouts start coming out of this first layer of dirt, what you'll do is you'll take this other mound and you'll bring that dirt on top of those sprouts, and then after a little while those sprouts will come on up through that layer of dirt as well, and you'll end up putting even more dirt on top of that. So your mound will end up being 5 or 6 inches deep, and those potatoes will grow up into that mound, and you'll be able to get the potatoes or gravel the potatoes from the sides of that mound. Now at that point, those sprouts will come on out of the ground. They'll make leaves, big pretty green leaves. Your challenge at that point is keeping the potato bugs off of them. If you want to do it an organic way, more power to you. I'm not an organic gardener myself, but I'm telling you, if you know an organic way to get rid of them, let me know, because I am more than willing to try it. At that point, you'll just wait and wait. Once those leaves start turning yellow, they'll get good and yellow, and at that point, your potatoes are ready. They're probably not going to grow anymore after that. Go ahead and get them, and hopefully you'll get a good harvest. And that's all I've got for today's video. If y'all know better ways to to do this, please leave a comment and let me know how you do it as well. Gardening is a lot like beekeeping. If you ask 10 different beekeepers how to do something, you're going to get at least 11 different answers. So if y'all have a better way to do this, some good tips and tricks, please let me know in the comments, and that will help other folks out that are watching as well. But please remember to hit that like button before you get out of here, and subscribe if you have not already, and I will see y'all next time.
Every message needs a dove, and everything grows with a drop of love. We're all hanging on tooth and nail. It's a rocky road, this pilgrim trail. Pilgrim trail, pilgrim trail. Sometimes heaven, sometimes hell.